Spring and Red Lake, they just go together, and I'll tell you why. The bite is always phenomenal here right from the get-go every single year. We're gonna show you exactly how to do it today. You don't have to be around a crowd. That's what's really cool. So stay right where you're at. Fish Head's coming up. Right here, this bait tamer is the best way in the world to keep shiners alive. Boy, sometimes you're out here doing this kind of thing, you get so sucked into wanting to go fish in a crowd of boats because you see them and you just assume they're catching fish. What we're doing a little different today is we came up here to the north end of Red, and we did this mainly to get away from everybody because there's no reason to have to fish right in a crowd all the time. And you know what? Those guys are catching fish and I'm sure they're having a great time, but if you want to get out and enjoy a bite where you don't have to fish around a ton of people, there's an opportunity to do that here on Red. And all you're looking for though is those areas at this time of year where you've got a transition. And what I'm on right now is I'm just sitting in an area. Well, you think that fish is hungry? Look how far down he ate that Fuzz-E-Grub. He just munched that thing down. But what I'm doing is sitting in an area where it comes up to rocks. I've dropped down the anchor and I'm sitting here and I'm just fan casting around the boat. And these fish are spending all their time swimming around these rock areas right now, or these transition areas. And if you can find those, and they're actually very, very plentiful up here on this north shore, you can put yourself in a position where you can catch fish. That launch this morning was absolutely crazy. And I'll tell you what, we're nearly all by ourselves. There's a couple boats over here. They're fishing the other side of this rock structure. But if you can find those things, like I say, you can get away from people and then you can move all around. So you're not in a situation where when you find a little pot of fish, because of that pack, you're in a situation where you got to keep moving. Here, when you find a little pot of fish, it can be all yours. You can sit and beat it up for a little bit. That's going to be a keeper. He's going to go home with us. Same spot. There's just a pile of fish sitting right over there. I'll tell you, oh, there, he got away on me. That's all right. There's a few of them out there. We'll get another one. Now, if there's one thing I'm kind of figuring out about these fish today, it is this cold front, and I mean, it's snowing on and off today, and it is making it tough to detect a bite. So I'm doing a couple different things to help the cause, and that's a good eater. We'll get him in here. But one of the things I'm doing is when I'm working this Fuzz-E-Grub, I am making sure that I am constantly working it as slow as I can, and all I'm doing is coming back like this, and then I'm just letting it settle back down, and it's one or two cranks. It's not a bunch of cranks. I've got to work it really, really slow because these fish, they are just not out and running around. That's a dynamite keeper. We'll throw him in the well. But the other thing I'm having to do is I'm having to really watch my rod tip. And I'll tell you what part of that is. Part of that is cold. My hands are cold. And I'm having to just watch that tip because what's happening is there is no wham, there is no thunk today. What it is it's just that they'll pick it up and they'll do this with it. So if I'm not watching that rod tip, it's almost really hard to feel, even with a super line and a high quality rod. Now here's the other thing I've done. I'm not using a standard Lindy jig today. What I've done is I've gone to a Fuzz-E-Grub. I'm using an 1/8 ounce Fuzz-E-Grub. Let me tell you why. There's a couple reasons. Number one, the wind's been blowing for a couple days and this water is pretty dirty. So one of the things that I think of right away is I want to make sure that the fish can see my bait. Well, with this Fuzz-E-Grub, it's a lot easier for them to see it because I'm putting extra color down there. I'm also putting that poof of that tail. When you've got that down there, that looks like a minnow down there trying to swim. That looks like the tail of that minnow. Then I'm adding a shiner minnow. So I'm really bulked up. But the other thing this does is it makes it really easy to work it slow, because this thing will drop a little bit slower with that plastic on it. It won't just fall like it's lead weight. It'll actually add a little bit of buoyancy and a little bit of drop because there's more water resistance. So as that thing drops into each rock, I can just lift it out and then let it fall back in a couple cranks and lift it out. If I'm moving fast today, I can't get bit. And I'll tell you what, I was moving way too fast for the first 20, 30 minutes. And I was getting pretty frustrated. I was starting to think, well, maybe it's color. Maybe I got to run around, find some new spots. All I did here, I'm fishing the same spot I started in. All I've done is just slow it down, slow that cadence down, and just work it real slow. One last thing, when you're jigging, don't drop that rod tip all the way down when you're pitching like this as soon as you jig it, okay? Because if you drop back down, especially on a day like today, you'll never see or feel the bite. So what you'll notice I do is when I pull that jig up, I hold my tip there, because then I can watch it as that jig is swimming back down, okay? Because that's when a fish is gonna grab it, and if I see him doing this with it, then I can drop the tip to him, put a couple cranks on it, and set the hook. If you follow that procedure, you'll get them most of the time. See him in that tip. Come on. Got him. Boy, I'll tell you, sometimes these fish, they'll make it awful complicated, and a lot of it is just having to move slow. And if you think you're going slow enough on a day like today, in a cold front like this, slow down even further. And one of the things I'm doing that makes a big, huge difference is I'm going to a smaller jig. I'm down to an 1/8 ounce Fuzz-E-Grub, and if I don't go down to that 1/8 ounce, I'll tell you what, I couldn't get it through these rocks. And the whole key is being able to just slowly move it through the rocks. So when you're sitting there with that 1/4 ounce jig and it's dumping into the rocks too hard and you're getting snagged up time and time again, just simply switch over to that 1/8 ounce Fuzz-E-Grub. It's gonna make a huge difference for you. That's 4. It's been a great day, and I'll tell you what, it's going to be a great summer here on Fish Head. We're going to run all over the Midwest and get on bite after bite. You know what? Maybe we'll even run into some warm weather along the way too. So check back each week. I'm Jon Thelen. We'll catch you next time.